He looked me dead in the eye and told me to get rid of the only thing I've ever truly loved. So I did the only thing a desperate Omega could do. I died. But I never anticipated that my fake demise would turn a cold, calculating alpha into a feral monster, tearing the world apart to find me. The rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan penthouse, distorting the glittering skyline into a blur of meaningless lights. I stood in the center of the vast, hollow living room, my fingers trembling as I clutched the small white ultrasound photograph. Inside me, a tiny flutter of life existed, a miracle I had prayed for in secret. But the scent in the room was not one of joy or celebration. It was suffocating. Dominic Astor, CEO of Astor Holdings and the most ruthless alpha on the eastern seaboard, stood by the marble fireplace. He was pouring himself a glass of scotch, the amber liquid catching the dim light. He wore his bespoke charcoal suit like a suit of armor, completely unbothered by the life-altering news I had just delivered. His scent, usually a crisp, intoxicating blend of cedarwood and winter frost, had turned sharp, acrid, and laced with absolute rejection. "I don't think you understand what you are asking of me, Oliver." Dominic said, his voice a low, vibrating rumble that commanded submission from every Omega in a 10-mile radius. He didn't even look at me. He just took a slow sip of his drink. "Dominic, please," I whispered, stepping forward, my maternal instincts screaming at me to protect my stomach, to shield our pup from the chilling aura radiating from him. "It's ours. I went to Mount Sinai this morning. Dr. Nathan Caldwell confirmed it. I'm 10 weeks along. It's a healthy pregnancy." He finally turned to face me, and the sheer emptiness in his steely grey eyes made my breath hitch. There was no warmth, no surprise, no softening of his rigid jawline. I had been sold to this man 2 years ago to cover my father's massive corporate debts. Thomas Hayes had bankrupted our family, and Dominic had swooped in, absorbing the debt in exchange for a bonded Omega to parade at high society galas. I knew I was a transaction, a pretty porcelain doll meant to sit quietly and look perfect. But over the last 2 years, I had foolishly fallen for him. I had mistaken his possessive growls in the dark for love. I had mistaken his heavy claiming bites on my scent gland for affection. "I remember explicitly telling you to stay on your suppressants," Dominic said, setting the crystal glass down with a sharp clack that echoed like a gunshot. "A pup is a liability. An heir right now, in the middle of the hostile takeover of the Vanguard Group, is a vulnerability I cannot afford. My enemies would use it against me. They would use you against me. I would never let anyone hurt us." I pleaded, tears finally spilling hot and fast down my cheeks. I closed the distance between us, reaching out to touch his chest, needing to feel the steady beat of his heart. "We can hide. You have the estate in the Hamptons, the private island in the Maldives. I'll go anywhere. Just, please, Dominic, let me keep my baby." He didn't flinch, nor did he lean into my touch. Instead, his large, calloused hand wrapped around my wrist, his grip ironclad but entirely devoid of tenderness. He slowly, deliberately removed my hand from his chest. "Get rid of it," he ordered, his alpha command, lacing every syllable, sending a painful jolt straight through my nervous system. My knees buckled slightly, but I forced myself to stay standing. "Call Caldwell. Schedule the procedure for tomorrow morning. I'll have Carter drive you. After it's done, you will rest, and we will never speak of this failure again." "Failure!" I gasped the word, tasting like ash on my tongue. "It's your child. It's a piece of you." "It is a mistake," Dominic corrected, coldly turning his back on me to stare out at the rain-soaked city. "And I do not tolerate mistakes, Oliver. If you do not make the appointment, I will have my private medical team handle it here in the penthouse. Do not test me. You know exactly what I am capable of." The silence that followed was heavier than the storm outside. I stared at his broad back, watching the slight shift of his muscles beneath the expensive fabric. In that agonizing moment, the fragile, pathetic illusion I had built around our relationship shattered completely. He didn't love me. He didn't view me as a mate. I was just property. And now he was ordering the destruction of the only innocent thing I had left. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't scream or throw things. The Omega inside me, usually so desperate to appease its alpha, suddenly went dead, quiet, replaced by a fierce, primal maternal instinct that overrode every bond, every mark, every command. "Okay," I whispered, my voice hollow, devoid of any emotion. "I understand." I turned and walked away, my bare feet silent on the cold hardwood floor. I retreated to the massive master bedroom, closing the heavy oak doors behind me. I walked straight into the walk-in closet, surrounded by rows of designer clothes, Patek Philippe watches, and diamond cufflinks that meant absolutely nothing to me. I sat on the plush ottoman in the center of the room and placed a trembling hand over my flat stomach. "I won't let him touch you," I breathed into the quiet room. "I promise you, I will get us out of here." But escaping Dominic Astor was like trying to escape gravity. He had eyes everywhere, his head of security. Carter watched my every move. My phone was monitored. My credit cards were tracked. If I just ran, they would find me within hours. Dominic would drag me back by my hair, and he would follow through on his threat. I needed something permanent. I needed a way out that left no trail, no hope, and no reason for him to ever look for me again. I pulled out my encrypted burner phone, a secret device I had hidden inside a hollowed-out book months ago, meant only for emergencies. I typed out a quick-coded message to the only person I trusted in this world, Leo Bennett, my childhood best friend and the most brilliant underground beta hacker in the city. "The cage is closing. I need the exit strategy tonight." 10 seconds later, the screen lit up with Leo's reply. "Midnight. Pier 42. Bring nothing. We are burning the bridge." I deleted the messages, crushed the burner phone under the heel of my boot, and flushed the pieces down the toilet. I looked at myself in the gilded bathroom mirror. My face was pale, my eyes red-rimmed, but a new, unbreakable resolve hardened my features. Oliver Hayes, the submissive, obedient Omega, was about to die. The logistics of erasing a human being from existence are staggeringly complex, especially when the person you are running from has the resources of a small country. But Leo had been preparing for this eventuality ever since the day Dominic first claimed me. We met in the shadows of Pier 42, the icy wind coming off the East River, biting through my thin trench coat. Leo was waiting in a nondescript rust-bucket sedan. He looked at me, taking in my pale face and the desperate grip I had on my stomach. He didn't ask questions. He just handed me a duffel bag. Inside is a new identity, a passport under the name Arthur Pendleton, 3,000 in untraceable cash and industrial-strength scent blockers. Leo said, his voice tight with anxiety. "But Ollie, Once we do this, there is no going back. If Astor ever finds out you faked this, he won't just kill you. He'll destroy everything you've ever touched." "He already ordered me to destroy my pup," I replied, my voice steady. "I have nothing left to lose, Leo. Tell me the plan." Leo pulled out a rugged tablet, showing me a map of the winding, treacherous roads of the Palisades Interstate Parkway, heading north into the steep cliffs of New Jersey. "I bought a Volvo station wagon in cash 2 weeks ago. It's parked 3 blocks from here. You are going to drive it up to the state line lookout. It's storming, visibility is 0, and the roads are slick." He zoomed in on a specific hairpin turn that bordered a massive sheer drop into the freezing, turbulent waters of the Hudson River below. "I've already planted your DNA in the Volvo. Hair a little skin on the steering wheel," Leo explained, swallowing hard. "You'll wedge a brick on the accelerator, aim it at the weakest part of the guardrail, and bail out before it goes over. The drop is over 400 feet. The current is vicious right now. They won't find the car for days, and they will assume your body washed out to sea." It was a terrifying plan hanging by a thread of perfect timing, but it was the only way. I nodded, taking the keys from him. We didn't hug. There was no time for goodbyes. Every second I was gone from the penthouse increased the risk of Carter noticing my absence. I had slipped out through the service elevator, bypassing the security cameras Leo had temporarily looped. The drive up the Palisades was a nightmare. The rain was coming down, in sheets, the windshield wipers struggling to keep up. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The heater was on full blast, but I couldn't stop shivering. I kept checking the rear-view mirror, terrified I would see the blinding headlights of Dominic's signature black SUVs closing in on me. When I reached the designated marker, a rusted mileage sign just before the hairpin turned my heart hammered violently against my ribs. I pulled over to the shoulder, the wind rocking the heavy Volvo. I grabbed the duffel bag, strapped it tight across my chest, and stepped out into the howling storm. The cold was instantaneous and brutal. I reached into the driver's side, grabbed the heavy cinder block Leo had left on the floorboard, and positioned it over the gas pedal. I threw the car into drive, jammed the block down, and threw myself backward onto the wet asphalt. The engine roared. The Volvo shot forward like a missile, tires hydroplaning on the slick road. It hit the rusted guardrail with a deafening metallic screech. The metal snapped like a dry twig, and for a split second, the car was airborne, its taillights glowing red in the dark, before it plunged into the abyss. Seconds later, a muffled, distant splash echoed up from the black depths of the Hudson. I lay in the mud, panting the rain washing away my tears. I was dead. Oliver Hayes was gone. I dragged myself up, ignoring the scrapes on my hands and knees. I applied the harsh chemical scent blockers to my glands, instantly killing my sweet vanilla and jasmine omega scent, replacing it with the sterile, unremarkable smell of wet cardboard and cheap soap. I hiked 3 miles through the dense Friesen woods to a secondary road where a Greyhound bus was scheduled to pass at 3 a.m. 48 hours later, I was sitting in a dingy, dimly lit motel room in a remote, fog-drenched coastal town in Maine. I had cut my soft blonde hair into a jagged short crop and dyed it a muddy brown. I wore oversized thrift store clothes. I looked entirely different, but the phantom weight of Dominic's claiming mark on my neck still burned. I sat on the edge of the lumpy mattress, eating saltines to keep the morning sickness at bay, and turned on the small, static-filled television. I expected to see a small news ticker, maybe a brief mention of the tragic accident of a billionaire's Omega. I expected Dominic to be relieved, secretly celebrating that his liability had taken care of itself. Instead, the screen flickered to a breaking news broadcast from New York. The headline made my blood run cold. Astor Holdings CEO offers $50 million reward for recovery of Omega's body. The footage showed Dominic outside the police precinct. But he looked nothing like the immaculate cold alpha I knew. He was a complete wreck. His bespoke suit was soaked and rumpled. He hadn't shaved, but it was his eyes that terrified me the most. They were wide, wild, and entirely feral. He was screaming at a terrified police commissioner, his alpha aura so violently oppressive that even through the television screen I could almost feel the phantom pressure of it. Drain the river. Dominic's voice cracked a horrifying demonic sound I had never heard him make. I don't care what it costs. You drain the damn river. He is not gone. Find him. He grabbed a reporter's camera, the lens cracking as he shoved his face into the frame. If anyone took him, if anyone touched a single hair on his head, I will burn this entire city to ash. I clicked the television off my hands, shaking violently as I dropped the remote. He wasn't relieved. He wasn't moving on. My fake death hadn't solved the problem. It had shattered the final lock on Dominic Astor's sanity, and as I stared at the blank screen in that freezing motel room, I realized with sickening clarity that the hunt hadn't ended. It had just begun. The coastal town of Port Haven, Maine, was a place forgotten by time, and thankfully by high society. I spent the next 6 months living as Arthur Pendleton, an unassuming beta, who kept his head down and worked the night shift at a local grocery store owned by a kind elderly woman named Beatrice Palmer. The harsh Atlantic winds and the constant smell of brine and pine needles were the perfect natural cover for whatever leaked past my chemical scent blockers. My life was a quiet, terrified routine of survival. Every morning, I would wake up in my drafty one-room cabin on the edge of the woods, check the heavy deadbolts, and scour the internet for news from New York. Dominic's descent into madness was highly publicized and deeply terrifying. He had transformed from a calculating corporate titan into a reckless, predatory warlord. Astor Holdings was aggressively dismantling rival companies, liquidating assets, and leaving thousands unemployed. The media called it a ruthless corporate monopoly. I knew it was a manhunt. He had hired Kensington and Croft, the most elite, shadowy private intelligence firm in the Western Hemisphere. They were turning the eastern seaboard inside out, raiding safe houses, bribing harbor masters, and interrogating underground fixers. He was looking for a ghost, but he was tearing the living world apart to find it. As my pregnancy advanced into the 7th month, concealing it became nearly impossible. My stomach was a heavy, pronounced curve, and the pup was relentlessly active. To hide my shape, I wore layers of oversized flannel and heavy winter parkas, even when the heating in the store was cranked up. But the physical toll was nothing compared to the biological nightmare of carrying an alpha's pup without the alpha present. Omega biology demands the scent and presence of the sire to soothe the developing baby. Without Dominic's cedarwood and frost aura, my body was in a constant state of distress. My joints ached, my fever spiked randomly, and the pup would kick so violently I would double over in the aisles of the grocery store, biting my lip to keep from crying out. I needed specialized Omega prenatal supplements to prevent a late-term rejection. It was a massive risk, but I had no choice. I couldn't let my baby suffer. I used a proxy server at the local library to contact a black market pharmaceutical broker Leo had recommended years ago. I paid triple the price in untraceable crypto to have the unmarked packages shipped to a P.O. box 2 towns over under a fake corporate name. For a while it worked. The supplements stabilized my fever, and the pup settled. I started to believe foolishly that we were going to make it. I started painting the small corner of the cabin a soft, pale yellow. I bought a second-hand crib and sanded it down by hand. I was building a life, a tiny, fragile bubble of happiness, far away from the glittering cage of Manhattan. Then, on a freezing Tuesday evening in late November, my secure burner phone vibrated. It was a single terrifying text from Leo Kensington, and Croft raided the broker. They have the shipping manifests. Run. Now. My heart stopped. The air in the cabin suddenly felt incredibly thin, as if a vacuum had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. I dropped the paintbrush, the yellow paint splattering violently across the wooden floorboards. I had been so careful. I had used 3 different aliases to secure that P.O. box, but I had underestimated Dominic's bottomless pockets. He had essentially bought the black market just to audit its ledgers. Panic, raw and suffocating, seized my throat. I grabbed my duffel bag, shoving my few clothes, my remaining cash, and my forged passport inside. My hands shook so badly, I dropped the zipper twice. My Omega instincts were screaming, the primal terror of being hunted, sending sharp, cramping pains shooting through my lower abdomen. "Shh, it's okay, little one," I gasped, clutching my heavy belly, trying to project a calm I didn't feel. "We're going to be okay. We just have to leave." I threw on my heaviest coat, grabbed the keys to my rusted pickup truck, and bolted out the front door. The Maine winter was unforgiving. A blizzard had started rolling in off the coast, the snow already ankle-deep and falling thick and fast. I waded through the drifts, my breath pluming in the icy air, praying the old engine would turn over. I reached the truck and yanked the handle, but before I could pull the door open, a sound pierced through the howling wind. It was the low, unmistakable crunch of heavy tires on gravel. I froze, turning my head slowly toward the long, winding dirt road that led to my cabin. Out of the blinding white snowfall, a pair of headlights appeared. Then another, and another. A convoy of 4 matte black SUVs crawled up the driveway like mechanical predators, moving with terrifying synchronized precision. They boxed my truck in, cutting off any avenue of escape. The headlights illuminated the falling snow, casting harsh, blinding beams across the yard. I backed away, my boots slipping on the ice. I retreated toward the porch, my arms wrapped protectively over my stomach. The doors of the SUVs opened in unison, but I didn't look at the heavily armed men stepping out. My eyes were locked on the lead vehicle. The rear door swung open. A heavy bespoke leather boot stepped out into the snow. And then the air shifted. The sterile, freezing scent of the blizzard was instantly overpowered by a tidal wave of cedarwood and winter frost, so thick and aggressively dominant that it literally forced me to my knees. The scent blockers on my skin melted away under the sheer pressure of his aura. Dominic Astor stepped into the light. He looked nothing like the immaculate billionaire I had left behind in New York. Dominic was a hollowed-out shell of a man, his cheekbones sharp and gaunt, his jaw covered in a thick, dark shadow of stubble. His expensive cashmere overcoat was unbuttoned, oblivious to the biting cold. But his eyes, those steely, calculating grey eyes, were entirely feral. They were the eyes of a starving wolf that had finally cornered its prey. He didn't say a word. He just walked toward me, his heavy footsteps crunching in the snow. His gaze locked onto my face, desperate, disbelieving, and unblinking. "Stay back!" I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat as I scrambled backward on the porch steps, shielding my swollen belly with both arms. "Don't touch us, I swear to God, Dominic. If you try to take my baby—" He stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes slowly lowered from my face, tracking down my oversized parka to where my hands were clamped protectively over the massive curve of my stomach. I watched the realization hit him. The physical evidence that I had disobeyed his command, that his pup was still alive, growing and thriving inside me. I braced myself for his fury, for the cold, unyielding alpha command to finally crush me. Instead, Dominic Astor, the most ruthless man on the eastern seaboard, collapsed. His knees hit the snow with a heavy thud. He didn't try to catch himself. He just knelt there, in the freezing slush, staring at my stomach, his chest heaving as if he had just run a marathon. A ragged, broken sound ripped out of him, a wet, guttural sob that sent a shockwave of utter confusion through my system. "You're alive!" Dominic choked out his voice, cracking entirely devoid of the alpha resonance that usually demanded obedience. He reached out with a trembling hand, stopping inches away from my knees, too terrified to actually make contact. "You're alive. You're both alive." "Why do you care?" I spat, crying now the adrenaline and terror mixing into a toxic, exhausting brew. "You ordered me to kill him. You called our pup a liability. You were going to let Caldwell. I was trying to save you." Dominic roared, the sudden volume, making me flinch, but it wasn't anger. It was sheer, desperate agony. He looked up at me, tears mixing with the melting snow on his face. The Vanguard Group. They didn't just want my company, Oliver. The CEO Victor Thorne's syndicate, they infiltrated my inner circle. They found out about the pregnancy before I did. I froze, the words hitting me like physical blows. "They sent me a package the morning you went to the clinic." Dominic continued, his voice, trembling his eyes, pleading with me to understand. "It was a tiny, newborn-sized coffin. They threatened to blow up Mount Sinai Hospital while you were inside. They threatened to kidnap you, to rip the pup out of you, and send him to me in pieces. I had a mole in my own security detail. Carter was working for them." My breath hitched. Carter. The man who was supposed to drive me to the clinic. "I couldn't show weakness," Dominic whispered, dropping his head, his broad shoulders shaking. "I had to make them believe I didn't care. I had to make them think the pup was a nuisance, a mistake. If they thought I valued you, they would have used you to destroy me, and they would have killed you both in the process. The plan was to let you think I was a monster, get you in the car, and have my loyal guards ambush Carter, extract you, and fly you to a secure bunker in Switzerland until I annihilated Vanguard." He looked back up at me, his face twisted in a mask of pure self-hatred. "But you ran. You ran to the bridge when I found that car in the river, when I thought I had pushed you to take your own life to protect our child. Dominic let out another shattered sob, bowing his head until his forehead rested against the snowy toe of my boot. I lost my mind, Oliver. I ripped the world apart. I destroyed Vanguard. I destroyed everyone who ever looked at you. I destroyed myself. I have spent every waking second of the last 6 months praying to a God I don't believe in to give me my mate back. I stood frozen on the porch, the freezing wind whipping around us, staring down at the broken Titan at my feet. My Omega purred a low, rumbling vibration of relief in my chest, recognizing the absolute truth in its Alpha's broken scent. He wasn't rejecting us. He had been trying to build a fortress, but he had built it with cruelty instead of communication. You should have told me, I whispered, my voice breaking. You should have trusted me. I know, he choked out, finally reaching up to gently wrap his massive hands around my freezing calves, resting his cheek against my knees. I was arrogant. I was a fool. I will spend the rest of my miserable life making this right, Oliver. Punish me. Hate me. Lock me out. But please, please don't run away again. Let me protect my family. Let me take you home. Slowly I lowered my hands from my stomach. The pup gave a soft, rhythmic flutter inside me, calmed by the overpowering scent of his sire's devotion. I reached down, tangling my freezing fingers into Dominic's snow-dampened hair. He leaned into the touch instantly, a desperate rumbling purr vibrating against my legs. The cage was still there. But as I looked at the convoy of armed men guarding the perimeter and the billionaire weeping at my feet, I realized the lock had changed. I wasn't his prisoner anymore. I was his absolute weakness, his king, and the center of his violent, terrifying world. Take us home, Alpha, I breathed. Did Oliver make the right choice by forgiving his Alpha? Or are some secrets too cruel to ever truly move past Dominic Astor, tore the entire world apart to protect his Omega, proving that sometimes the darkest actions are driven by the most desperate love? If you loved this intense, twist-filled Omegaverse story, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow drama lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-stopping original audio stories.